So as you might imagine, this last week or two have been full of memories, trying to move things out of my office. And I want to show you something that I found that was a complete surprise to me. Anybody recognize this? Blackberry, some called them crackberry, remember? So this is from 2007. This is what John Fife was trying to reach me on when we were in Africa, saying, "Are you coming back?" So we've gone from this to now an iPhone where we broadcast the service the first Sunday of the pandemic. That's how much the world has changed. In 2007 was the year Apple launched the iPhone. It's the year that Facebook and Twitter went global. And it's the year that Google bought YouTube. And also the year before the great economic collapse. So if you just think of the last 15 years, how much we are not even the same as we were. Our life has changed dramatically. And we've rode those waves together, have we not? So much has changed. I have just a few more wrinkles, a few more pounds than I did in 2007. I have so many more memories because of the grace that you have shown me. July 1 of 2007, I preached what is called in the UCC a candidating sermon. And then the congregation would vote whether I was the one or not. And I used the same text on July 1st that I'm using today, hence the title, Full Circle. As Annalee said last night, for those of you that listened in online or were here, it was kind of a whirlwind time. We'd gotten back from Africa. We were new parents. We had no idea what we were doing. I would wake up in the middle of the night and say to her, "We have a kid. Oh, my gosh." Her brother got married. She had to leave the next week. I had committed months beforehand to go to Riverside UCC in New York City and preach their Pride service. And then the next Sunday was here. John the Baptist sends his disciples. John the Baptist was in prison. And he sends his disciples. We don't know why. Maybe he was just doubting some things. Go find this Jesus and ask him, "Are you the one?" Because after all, I'm giving up my life here. Are you the one, or do we expect someone else? Did you notice that in his inimitable way, Jesus doesn't actually answer the question? He doesn't tell, he shows. He basically said, look at my actions. Look at the kind of healing, compassion, inclusion, and dignity that I have shown to people. Look at that. And by the way, economics matter because my message, if we live it, is good news to the poor. In my sermon that day, 15 years ago, I turned the question on to the congregation. And I said, will you be the ones? Will you be the ones that are all about healing and inclusion and compassion and love? Will you be the ones who will challenge structural and systemic racism and inequality? Will you be the ones who will strive to live a gospel, a faith rooted in the here and now, that treat people's needs as holy, a faith based not in creeds, but in deeds? I wanted to be sure that this would be a true partnership. I wanted to be sure that you knew who you were getting so that you wouldn't be mad later on. And I know you're still mad now about other things, but that's okay. But I want to remind you, as Verl said last night, that what brought me here was not my vision. It was your vision. This is the only church I applied to, because it was the only church that I could see, that I could imagine pastoring. That is the honest truth. It was your vision of progressive Christianity, beloved community, and increasing your heart and emphasis in actions and social justice. That is what brought me here. Not my vision, but your vision. So I went out on a limb, and I preached the sermon that day. I wanted to do real work together. And after the benediction, I was walking out, and I had to go in what would become my office and wait while you all talked about me and voted. And on the way out, I leaned over to Ann Lee just to say, I got to go over here. And I leaned down, and after preaching that sermon, I leaned down, and she said, "I thought you wanted this job." Here's the deal. You chose me and I chose you. And what a great ride it's been. You were the ones. Verl kind of stole all my thunder from what I was going to say. It's like I had it all written down. He said it last night about all the things he said that we've accomplished. Yes, we have accomplished together. None of those are my accomplishments. They are our accomplishments. We did them together. When you voted in 2002 to become an open and affirming church, you began the slippery slope. You know how all the conservatives talk about the slippery slope? Well, if we do this, then what's going to happen? A slippery slope is true, because you slid right down all the way into more extravagant welcome and inclusive love. Amen. And you kept going to become a sanctuary church, to be real partners in North Central, to stand against hurtful and harmful immigration policies that separated and continues to separate families. After you became a sanctuary church, we welcomed a trans woman from Honduras, and then a family separated at the border and reunited to stay with us for a year from Guatemala. You stood out against gun violence. You engaged, particularly in the last few years, you engaged the hard work of white people doing real, honest work on racial injustice. I could use a bigger thing about that. Seriously, and you're not done, and I'm not done. We have work to continue to do. We've done so much more. Friends, this is a big tent that welcomes all kinds of people. And if I could read you some of the emails that I've received from people saying that the welcome they felt here, whether they don't even know if they believe in a God, whether they're Christian or Jewish or Buddhist, whether they're anti-church, but they found a place here. Please continue that. Please be that big tent that you are, with the solid stakes holding it up, of justice, of unconditional love, of extravagant welcome. And there's one more, but I forgot what it was. Lean into your history. When you walk in Claus Hall, remember that it was Reverend Claus who served here from 1923 to 1931. Before he ever came here, preached a social gospel message. He preached about war and prison reform, immigration, economics, and race. Super progressive at that time, and this congregation hired him. When you go in the Buckham room, remember Reverend Buckham, who, when very few white pastors did, went to the internment camps and visited and ministered to those in those camps And let me tell you, the Japanese American community in San Mateo has never forgotten that. It remains part of their history today. And then more recently, Reverend Jim Keck led the way into a progressive Christianity. And let's face it, Christianity has a bad reputation right now. And can we just say, well won, well deserved? All the more reason for you to be who you are. And don't let anybody hijack what it means to be a person of faith. Don't do it. Don't let them. Don't give it over to exclusionary and hateful and harmful religion. Don't do it. Stay who you are. Stay grounded. Keep your vision strong. And so if somebody says, seriously, you go to a Christian church? That's when you say, you bet. And let me tell you, let me show you. Say with Martin Luther King Jr., we refuse to believe that the bank of justice is bankrupt. And ground yourself in the guiding principles. To be Christian, which is about a way of love. To be spiritual, which means there are many ways to experience the divine. To be inclusive, to offer that extravagant welcome. To be open-minded. Wow, open-minded people of faith. Who knew, right? Evolving to welcome change. To be God's hands and feet. There's still so much work to be done. And you are the people to do it. Trans bodies are under threat. Women's bodies are under threat. We have so far to go in reconciling and repairing racial injustice. There's so much to do. But you can do together what you can never do alone. And the bank of justice is not bankrupt. So friends, you who are listening in, you who will listen in later, the pandemic has been a great diaspora. Come on back. It's time to, as Julie said, double down in your community. Do it for one another. Do it for your rich history. And do it because this nation, this region, this county, this city needs to be shown a different way that people of faith and people of goodwill and people for the common good can work together. The first Sunday after you voted me in, even after that sermon, the first Sunday I was here, that September, I didn't really know you. I'd been at another church for 12 years, and it was an out-of-body experience to be here. And at the very end, I didn't know what to say, which is like unusual for me, I know, but I just said, and I couldn't believe I said it later, I just said, well, thanks for having me. Like I had just had dinner at your house or something. So I'm going to end with that. Thanks for having me. It's been a great ride. And go forward. Amen. be seated.